So we've now reached the official start time for this webinar. I would like to welcome you all to our webinar on digital skills training using the Apprenticeship Levy. The goal of this presentation is, as it says on the tin, demystifying the Apprenticeship Levy and providing an overview from entry to graduation for our apprentices. And you'll see on this welcome slide a whole bunch of logos which will be explained as we go on. First of all, I'm going to highlight the Cambridge Spark one. Hopefully you're familiar with our organisation. If not, you're going to have a little bit more information by the end of this presentation. So if everyone's ready and everyone's happy to send in some questions, if anything I say you don't understand clearly or you'd like clarification, let's get started. So I'd like to start by introducing myself. Some of you may know me already. I am the Apprenticeship Manager for Cambridge Spark, and I've worked in HR, learning and development, and equivalent roles for many, many years now. I've been working with Cambridge Spark since January when we had our first apprentices on the programme, and we've been working to evolve, expand and grow our apprenticeship offering since then. As I said, the goal for today is to provide insight into modern apprenticeships as they are today in England specifically. Apprenticeships and the Apprenticeship Levy are a devolved policy. So if you need to know about Scotland or Wales, please drop me a message after this webinar and I'll be able to point you in the right direction. We're going to explain how the Apprenticeship Levy can be used to close digital skill gaps in your organisation. As I said, I come from a HR background. I can empathise with the recruitment challenges and that ever-growing digital skills gap. So this is about growing your own talent. During this webinar, please message in with your questions. We are recording this session, so you will be sent a link to watch the video as many times as you like, and the slides and video link will be shared at the end. What I'm hoping you are going to leave today with is practical advice for setting up an apprenticeship programme within your organisation, and some ideas, some inspiration on how to use the Apprenticeship Levy and apprenticeships to increase particularly technical and digital skills in your organisation. So a little bit about Cambridge Spark, the organisation that I work for. We are all about closing the data science skills gap. So we've got a whole range of talent solutions. We can help you with recruitment, talent attraction, very, very good at assessing people's ability. If you want to know more about our commercial training offering, please do get in touch. I'm not going to go into any more detail, but this gives you an overview of what we do as specialists in data science training and talent solutions. So apprenticeships. Part of the reason you are here on this webinar today is due to a review of apprenticeships that happened in 2012, carried out by Doug Richard. And the conclusion of that was that apprenticeships need to be high quality training with serious kudos and tangible value to both the apprentice, the learner, and to the employer. And that's at the heart of the situation we have with apprenticeships today. And that's at the heart of all legislation and innovation that is taking place within apprenticeships. What I want to talk about is that there is a large amount of stigma still attached to the term apprenticeship. A large number of the conversations I have are starting with, no, you don't have to be a blacksmith or a cobbler. You can be an apprenticeship in, or an apprentice in data science, you can be an apprentice in artificial intelligence, you can be an apprentice in retail, hairdressing, as well as all the key STEM subjects. So there's a lot going on. This screenshot is taken from the government apprenticeship website, and it shows you what an apprenticeship could look like in today's modern apprenticeship structure. It covers multiple sectors, multiple specialisms, and applies to many career stages. It is not just for school leavers. So, what is an apprenticeship? I think we have just covered quite a lot of the key details. So, to drill down into those a little bit more, an apprenticeship is a long-term program. It must be a minimum of 12 months of study. Some apprenticeships go up to 3 or 4 years. That does not mean you are losing an employee for 3 to 4 years. Apprentices must be employed. They're not students doing a degree. They are employees, workers, who are doing a training course as part of their employment. I mentioned it covers a huge range of educational levels, from level 2, which is approximately a GCSE equivalent, up to level 7, which is the same as a master's degree. And apprentices can be and are any age. The apprenticeship that they undertake must be directly relevant to their job role. So you cannot have someone who is employed as a data scientist doing a hairdressing apprenticeship. If they're employed as a data analyst, they can be doing a data analyst apprenticeship. Employers can collaborate with external training providers to deliver the learning. So some employers choose to provide the apprenticeship training themselves, particularly large employers. Marshalls in Cambridge is a really great example of an organisation that has been delivering apprenticeships for 100 years and have evolved their delivery so that they are now delivering apprenticeships in a modern, engaging and Ofsted compliant way. So they are registered with the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers. However, many employers choose to work with external training providers, and that's where an organisation like Cambridge Spark comes in. Distinctive elements of this kind of training programme include the fact that there is 20% off the job training time. So that's the equivalent to 1 day a week, is calculated as learning new content, not implementing it in the workplace. That's the other 80% of the time. The apprenticeships are government accredited and co-funded by the government. This is a qualification exactly the same as a GCSE, an A-level, a degree. It has the same kudos and credibility. The Institute for Apprenticeship defines the standards, and standards are, if you think of those cooking shows where the different chefs are given the same ingredients and they make a whole range of different recipes and different meals from those ingredients, the standard is like the list of ingredients. The apprenticeship looks different depending on which employer, which provider, but it must contain the ingredients, the elements that are set out in the standards. And the final thing that is special about apprenticeships is there is an endpoint assessment, and this is carried out by an external partner. Apprenticeship training providers are not allowed to mark their own homework. So again, this adds to the credibility and validity of the programme. Because this is a government programme, there are initial eligibility checks. So things like right to work, length of residency in the UK, and making sure that there is not a duplication of prior learning. So if, for example, someone came to me with a computer science degree and they wanted to do an apprenticeship at a level 4, so a lower level than a degree level in data analytics, there could be some duplication. So that's something you'll need to work with the training provider to make sure you know exactly what has been covered and you're not wasting time or money covering content that's already been seen before. Just to give you an idea of the different learning levels. So I mentioned apprenticeships cover that band from level 2, which you can see is the same as a GCSE, all the way up to level 7, which is the same as a master's degree. So there's lots of options and lots of different ways to engage your workforce. or attract talent depending where they're at in their career and previous learning. So an image you may have seen before, it's from the government's Fire It Up campaign, promoting modern apprenticeships and really focusing on STEM subjects. 86% of employers have said apprenticeships developed skill relevant to their organisation, and 78 reported improved productivity. Now, these are two huge statistics. We're constantly hearing about the productivity gap here in the UK and the difficulties in closing that productivity skill gap. Apprenticeships are a really tried and tested way to close that gap, bring in new skills that are relevant to your organisation and increase productivity and therefore profits. So if we think about the benefits of an apprenticeship, I've started to say some of them, but the key benefits that keep coming up from research and surveys and reported anecdotally are loyalty. So 90% of apprentices stay on at their place of work after completing the apprenticeship. We hear a lot about millennials and young people being difficult to keep and retain in jobs, the employment wedge, the cost of recruiting them, and then the potential loss of them leaving the organisation. The commitment of an apprenticeship means there is this increased loyalty, and that individual is likely to stay with your business far, far longer. Talent attraction. So there's a wide selection of apprenticeships available, covering lots of different job roles at various different stages. So advertising an apprenticeship, you're recruiting a brand new employee, and you're also saying we're going to invest and train you. So it's a win-win for the candidates, and it makes you stand out in the job market. Apprenticeships are employer-led. I'll say a little bit more about this later, but basically the standards we've mentioned are designed by employers, and it's employers who are in charge of how they spend their levy funding. So you can work with the training provider and you can adapt the training your apprentice receives according to the needs of your organisation. If you want to focus on one particular aspect or skill set of that standard, that apprenticeship, talk to your training provider and they'll be able to work with you to enhance it. Inclusion. So diversity and inclusion, hot topics in HR, and huge business benefits for having a diverse workforce. Apprenticeships are a great tool for increasing this. They attract a wider range of candidates. You're not purely relying on the same graduate pool. You can bring more people in. You can grow your own graduates who wouldn't have thought about going to university another way. Another great attraction of apprenticeships is it can bring people back into the workplace. It can upskill them into new roles. And that brings me on to the fifth benefit, that this is a skills-focused training course. It is about employing and upskilling employees of any age, any background, and it's all about meeting the business needs. Another top fact for you, did you know in 2017 and 18 financial year, eligible employers spent just 9% of the funds available on new apprenticeships. So that means they accessed £191 million of £2.2 billion of levy funds. Please check if your organisation is paying into the levy and think, what can you be doing with the money? So for those of you who are not familiar with this levy, quick overview. Employers with a salary bill of £3 million or more will have 0.5% held in the levy. The government will add additional funding to this, and only trainers or employers who are on that register I already mentioned, the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers, can deliver training and claim funding from the government. Those training providers are Ofsted inspected and audited to ensure the quality of these providers, same as a school, same as a college. Apprenticeships are assessed by external endpoint assessors. As I said, this ensures consistency of outcomes and means that the qualification awarded has credibility. Apprenticeships must follow the standards, that list of ingredients, those elements that go into them offered by or outlined by the Institute for Apprenticeships, and money can only be spent on these apprenticeships. However, you do not have to hire new 16-year-olds to your business to have apprentices. You can also consider training existing staff. And a very quick illustration of how the money moves. So the employer with the salary bill over £3 million has that 0.5% taken and added into a government pot where the government adds 10%, whatever's sat there. The employer then selects the training provider and they notify the ESFA, Education Skills Funding Agency, that they've got a training course, they've got apprentices, it's all ready to go and it's approved. And then the training provider, in this case Cambridge Spark, will complete and upload the individual learning records for each apprentice, and they will do that every month and make the claim, draw down that money from the Education Skills Funding Agency. There's a lot more information on the government pages. I'm not going to bore you with it now. What I am going to say is this is hot off the press. BCS, Chartered Institute for IT, have carried out a survey of employers, and they have found 71% of employers have found that the apprenticeship levy has a proven return on investment. It's not just a tax, it's not money lost, it is making a tangible difference to their business and they are seeing a return on the time and money invested. For those who are not paying the government apprenticeship levy, they don't have a large enough salary bill, there is an alternative way of accessing apprenticeships. It's called co-investment. And from the 1st of April 2019, the employer is liable for 5% of the cost of an apprenticeship, whilst the government will pay the additional 95% of the cost. The 5% fee that the employer pays will be paid to the training provider directly, and it can be over a schedule. It can be paid by instalments. An additional fact to note here is if you are a levy payer and you have excess funding in your levy that you're not able to spend, then you can use this money to gift to smaller businesses. And then they don't even have to pay the 5%. They've got that money. I'm just going to take a moment because I can see we've got a question come in. Hi, Dino. If a member of staff is successful in obtaining an apprenticeship for 4 years, for example, then decides to move to another employer after 1 year, how does the funding work? Excellent question with a not very simple answer. Basically, it's going to be a lot of negotiation. What I would say is that apprentice has entered into an agreement, so they have undertaken that they will do this apprenticeship. The apprentice would also need to talk to the new provider, the new employer. Will the new employer honour the apprenticeship? Will they still be delivering it? In which case it becomes the new employer's responsibility to square things up with the ESFA. Or is the apprentice abandoning the apprenticeship completely, walking away? In which case you're going to need to talk to your training provider about costs, but no further funding will be drawn down from the ESFA. So a bit of a complicated answer there. And what I would say is if you want more information about this, we'll get in touch after the webinar and I can give you a more detailed answer relevant to your circumstance. I really hope that has helped. So moving on, promise this would be looking at digital apprenticeships. So with the last 10 minutes, that's what we're going to talk about. Those of us working in technology, HR, recruitment are acutely aware that we have more jobs than we have candidates, and that skills gap is going to keep growing across the European Union. The situation in the UK at the moment, we're not sure what talent pools we're going to be drawing from long term. And particularly in technology, we need to close this skills gap. So what are Cambridge Spark doing? Well, 87% of employers BCS spoke to said they're going to be using apprenticeships to close their IT skills gaps, and that's where we come in. We have a range of options. So specifically in data science, that's our specialism, and we as a training provider have decided we are going to specialize in our area of expertise. So we're focusing on data science. Some training providers will focus on offering a broad range of subjects and offer that diversity. That's not our pattern. So we have a data analyst level 4, which we deliver in approximately 14 months, excluding endpoint assessment. There's all the details here. We use our platform called Kate, which is a real coding environment. You're given data science tasks to complete. You are implementing all your skills and you get immediate feedback on the success of your coding, your responses. That feedback tells you what you've done right, what you can do to improve, how to improve and get better. So rather than being in a classroom where we've got a teacher stood at the front talking about coding, our methodology is that you're given the information you need and you're given an environment where you can put it to the test. That's what makes our programs accelerated. That is what makes them really, really good for the learners. They can engage with the subject matter. It also means our programs are offered via remote distance learning. We are working with Anglia Ruskin to deliver degree apprenticeships and master's apprenticeships in data science. And again, more details can be found here online, and I'll happily speak to you about it after this webinar. To give you an idea of what the data analyst apprenticeship looks like if you're to work with us, how we put those ingredients together, here is an overview of all the elements that go into an apprenticeship. So we've got the modules where we'll be sharing e-learning content and making the projects on that platform available. We have a hackathon in the middle where you can put all your skills to the test, work collaboratively, interact with colleagues, share and exchange ideas. And that's in the middle. We've got more theory, we've got preparation for some exams in there, and all the way through that, we're using our platform Kate for instant coding feedback. Together, that will count for most of the 20% off the job training. If you as an employer are doing additional training in the workplace, so mentoring, shadowing, group sessions, sending them for additional training courses, that all counts to the 20% off the job training. So you'll find that you're meeting that target very quickly, very effectively. For this particular standard, apprentices are also asked to build a portfolio of projects. Now, these are projects they're carrying out in the workplace. They can be anonymized. All the endpoint assessment organization are interested in is how they have put the skills they've learned to the test and implemented them in the workplace. So that's something we will work with your apprentices to put together. We will send regular surveys to check that they're on track, that they're enjoying it, they have all the resources they need, and feedback from that will be shared with you as an employer. And every 2 months, we will have a coaching session. So these coaching sessions are with one of our expert coaches, with your apprentice, and either their manager or mentor will be involved, and you'll get written up report recapping where you're at. This is where the apprentice is driving their own development as well, identifying challenges they're facing and working with our coach to put goals and targets in place to overcome them. Throughout it all, there is support through our support email address. And for the data analyst apprenticeship at level 4, there are additional assessments which need to be undertaken prior to endpoint assessment. So there is one which is run by BCS and one which is the Dell EMC, Data Science Associate. Both of these we will give the training and preparation, and if necessary, if you do not have functional skills level 2 in maths and English, that's something we will do. As this is an entry-level program for people with very little coding experience previously, the first 3 months, at the end of each of the first 3 modules, we will do an in-person training session as well to make sure that your learners have got the information you need. I can see I've got a couple more questions. So again, Dino, thank you for these, keep them coming. Are there fixed intake points onto the apprenticeship? For example, only September, or are there multiple entry points during the year? Okay, I'm going to go back a slide for this one because it's a great question. It depends who's running the apprenticeship. So the degree apprenticeships, which are run by Anglia Ruskin, yes, there are fixed entry points because they are degree programs. So it will run on the academic calendar and follow the standard academic process. For programs which are run by independent training providers such as ourselves, we have a lot more flexibility. So for example, we are likely to have a cohort starting with one employer in January, a cohort starting with another employer in February, a second cohort starting with the original employer starting in April, and so on and so forth. So we've got the flexibility and the resources to work with the employer when you need, and that's how it works. I hope that helps. It's a conversation to have with your apprenticeship training provider. Before we go, and I am conscious of time, I do have a newsflash for you, and this is an official BBC newsflash. Remember how I said apprenticeships are put together by employers? So an employer group, or trailblazer group as they're technically known, led by the BBC and involving a range of other employers, are proud to announce that the Artificial Intelligence Data Science or Data Specialist Level 7 has had the standard approved. The endpoint assessment should be approved shortly, and as soon as that is, we will be delivering this apprenticeship directly. It's an alternative to the Anglia Ruskin academic one, and this we could start at various different points in the year. I hope that helps. And again, we have a plan. This is what we think it's going to look like. To do this, it's your apprenticeship program and it's run your way. If you want more information about this, I encourage you to contact me at the end of the webinar. And as I promised, these slides are going to be shared with you. I have included some links to some really good resources for further reading. The starting point for finding your apprenticeship in whichever subject, whichever profession, is the Institute for Apprenticeships. The starting point for working out how the levy works, how you can recruit apprentices, all of that information is on apprenticeships.gov.uk. For those in East Anglia, please check out the Greater Cambridge Apprenticeships site, where you will get neutral advice about the range of training providers in the area. And for anyone who is interested in supporting education around apprenticeships as an alternative to university or a different means of education within schools, please reach out to Form the Future. They're an excellent charity. So with that, I want to say thank you very much. We have seen that apprenticeships can be for early careers or experienced talent in your business. They blend theory, that 20% off the job time, with experiential learning in the workplace. The levy funding, if you are paying it, it is there to be used, and if you don't use it, it will be lost. Please use it. And if you need inspiration, just get in touch. I'll happily point you in the right direction. There are a wide range of apprenticeship standards and training providers out there. Obviously, I'm biased and I've focused on what Cambridge Spark has to offer. Again, I can point you in the right direction if you're looking for something we don't have. And the benefits for the business include increased productivity, talent retention, and increasing diversity in your workplace. Thank you all very much for your time. Please do stay in touch, and I hope that answered some of your questions. Take care. Bye.